Ever feel like your website, it's kind of like lost in a sea of websites? You've worked so hard on your business, but your website, it's just not quite there yet.
It's come and struggle.
Totally. And the thing is, you've been looking into some really great resources, like that course on building effective websites, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Especially episode 11, that one really stood out. So we're going to dive deep into that today, pull out those key takeaways, and figure out how they apply to your website.
Sounds good.
Because it's one thing to hear the advice, but then it's like, okay, but what do I actually do with this?
Right, exactly.
And what I really liked about that episode, that particular episode, was how it talked about your website being like the central hub.
Yeah, it's not just a standalone thing.
It's like the heart of your online presence.
It's like the grand central station of your whole digital strategy. Everything connects to it.
I love that. Like, all roads lead to Rome. All your marketing should lead back to your website.
Exactly.
And if it's a mess,
If people get there and they're like, oof, I don't know where to go.
it's like walking into a messy store. You're just like, "Ah."
I'm out of here.
Right.
It reflects on your whole brand.
Totally. And speaking of first impressions, they were really strong on that mobile first thing.
Of course.
I mean, that's just a given these days, right? Everyone's on their phone.
It's not even an option anymore. It's essential. You got to design for mobile first.
So, like, is the text big enough on a phone? Is it easy to navigate
Can you find what you need quickly?
without zooming in and out a million times?
Exactly. And they even recommended using Browser Stack, that tool,
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
to test your website on like every different browser and device imaginable.
Makes sense. You got to make sure it looks good everywhere.
Absolutely. And, one thing they really hit on in that episode, which I thought was smart, is this idea of like answering the right questions on your website.
Oh, yeah.
Not just like what you want to tell people, but what they actually need to know.
Right. Like thinking about it from their perspective.
Exactly. And they actually gave a good tip for this. They said to think about all those questions you get asked over and over again,
Oh, that's so true.
whether it's in emails or phone calls.
Even in person, like at a networking event or something.
Exactly. Because those are the things that are probably not clear enough on your website.
Oh, for sure. It's like those are the FAQs that people are actually asking.
Right. So if you can answer those up front on your website.
It saves everyone a lot of time and hassle.
Exactly. And it builds trust, too. Like they can see you understand their needs.
Okay, so let's say you're like, I don't know, a dog groomer. What kind of questions do you think people would be asking a dog groomer?
Okay, so for a dog groomer, probably things like, what services do you offer, right? Like, do you do just basic baths, or do you do, like, fancy haircuts, too?
Yeah. And like, what breeds do you specialize in? Because some groomers, they only work with certain breeds.
Right. Or maybe they have more experience with certain temperaments, like if you've got a dog that's kind of a handful.
Totally. Or what about pricing?
Yes.
What?
People always want to know about pricing. And maybe even things like, what kind of products do you use?
Oh, especially if you've got a dog with sensitive skin or allergies.
Absolutely. That's huge.
See, these are things that I wouldn't have even thought about, but they're so important to have on your website.
Exactly. It's all about anticipating those questions.
Okay, so we've tackled the whole mobile first thing and answering the right questions. What else did that episode cover?
Well, they talked about branding, which can be tricky.
Branding, yeah. That one always makes me a little nervous. It's kind of vague.
It is, right.
It's like, okay, I know my brand needs to be consistent, but what does that actually look like?
Right. It's more than just like putting your logo on every page.
Right.
It's about the feeling you're trying to evoke.
And they used that example of a luxury brand, right?
Yeah, they said a luxury brand has to feel luxurious.
Which makes sense. Like, you're not going to see a luxury brand with, like, a website that looks like it was made in Microsoft Word.
Definitely not. Think high-quality photography, elegant fonts.
Maybe some subtle animations, just to give it that extra polish.
Exactly. But then, if your brand is more about, like, affordability.
Yeah, like a discount store or something.
Exactly. Then your website needs to reflect that, too.
So, like, clear calls to action, showing the prices up front.
Maybe even some testimonials from happy customers talking about how much money they saved.
It's all about being true to your brand, really.
Absolutely. And one way to kind of gauge how you're doing with that, they said, is to look at your competitors.
Oh, yeah, the good old competitive analysis.
It's not about copying them, of
Yep.
course,
No, of course not.
but it's about seeing what they're doing well and maybe not so well, and seeing where you fit in.
So it's like getting inspiration, not copying.
Exactly. Inspiration. I like that.
Borrowing, but like returning it with interest.
There you go.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but they saved, I think, the most important piece of advice for last. They were really big on this one.
Oh, yeah.
Google Page Speed Insights.
Oh, that's a good one.
Have you used that before?
Oh, absolutely. It's like essential.
It's like Google's basically handing you the keys to the kingdom.
I know. It's free advice from Google on how to make your website better.
It's like they're saying, look, we want your website to succeed. Here's how you do it.
Right. They analyze everything, your loading speed, how it looks on mobile, how it looks on desktop.
And they give you those really specific recommendations.
Exactly. Like, here's exactly what you need to fix to make your website faster, to make it rank higher.
Which is huge because nobody wants to wait for a slow website.
No, nobody. People will just click away.
So if Google's telling you to fix something, you fix it.
You listen to Google. They're the boss.
Okay, so big picture time, we've covered mobile-first design, answering the right questions, brand consistency, checking out the competition, and of course, Google Page Speed Insights. Did we miss anything?
I think we hit all the major
Yes.
points.
It's a lot to take in, but it's all about taking action.
Exactly. Don't just listen to this and then do nothing. Pick one thing, just one, and work on it this week.
I love that. Small steps, consistent progress.
Exactly. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Oh, I'm stealing that one.
Go for it.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
This was fun.
Always a pleasure chatting with you. And to our listeners, thanks for joining us. Remember, your website is a work in progress, so be patient, keep experimenting, and most importantly, have fun with it. Until next time.
See you later.